Another way to mess around with or affect the relationship between objects is to use something called the gap tool. And so that's what I'm going to show you right now. I have this nice grid of photos that I actually took in Hawaii. And I'm going to use the gap tool. The gap tool is this funny little tool up here in the toolbar that looks like two lines with the arrows kind of measuring in between. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now I have my gap tool selected, and you can see as I roll it around, different things happen. Basically, I can take it and put it in the gap between objects, and then click and drag it around, and it will affect the objects around it in different ways depending on what key you might be holding down at the same time as using the gap tool. Right now I'm not going to hold down any keys, just the gap tool by itself. But I'm going to drag to the right. Now you see what happens? My images, because I'm picking the frame, the image frames get smaller and the gap gets bigger. That is just with the gap tool itself. I can do that between any gaps. So there you go. Alright, so I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to show you another way that you can use the gap tool. Alright, I'm going to undo that, and now another thing, so that was the shift key. If you hold down the control key while you do this, you can see what happens. Oops. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the command key, not the control key. The control key if you're on a PC, the command key if you're on a Mac. But here you can see, oh, it's not doing it. Oh, they're not selected. That's why. Alright, let me reselect them. It is the control key. Oh, this is all. When you hold down the shift key, you press the shift key first and hold, and then you use the gap tool and click on the gap tool and drag. You'll see what happens. It only affects the item nearest, or the two items nearest the cursor. Now I've undone that, just using the gap tool and the shift the shift key at the same time. Now if you do command or control, depending on if you're on a PC or Mac, and do the same thing, we gotta pick them. Sorry, I don't have the gap tool. Whoops. I keep unselecting, so I've got to select them and then click the gap tool. Oh, it doesn't want to. Oh, that's right. I don't have to have them selected. Duh. Sorry. All right, so I'm gonna hold down the command key and I'm gonna drag. And now you see it affects the entire row, but kind of in an opposite way. It increases the width if you're using a row in your row gap, or the height. Let me see here. Oh, why is it not doing that? Alright, so I'm going to hold down the key for it. It's not letting me. Oh, here we go. There we go. Or it affects the height if you're in a row. I think it wouldn't affect this up here because I did some other things to it first. So that is with the command or the control key. Now I'm going to undo that. So I have everything back to the way it was. And now I'm going to go back to my gap tool, and this time I'm going to hold down the Option or the Alt key. Alt if you're on a PC, Option if you're on a Mac. And now it still affects the gap, but it moves the items that are nearest to the gap you're adjusting with it. So it actually adjusts the gap, the other gap, the next gap. So there's just a few ways that you can use the gap tool. With the gap tool, it is one of those tools that's best understood if you just play around with it.